leg, which is the ham, you can actually see where the division is. So this is probably one of the easiest things to do. I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut around. So this is the fresh ham. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to remove basically this four-quarter portion, right? This consists of two of our cuts. That is our shoulder, which is right here, and that rectangular kind of meatier cut right above it is the pork butt. I know what you guys thinking. This is the butt of the, why is it, what they're calling the butt and the shoulder. So the butt was a container, and typically they would take these and put it in a particular container. It was like a vat, basically. They called that the butt. So this was a cut that a lot of times would be marinated or thrown inside of that to be soaked, basically in a brine or something. So. But anyway, that cut is now known as the pork butt. Typically, when we make this division and we separate everything, we would cut 3 ribs. We would count 3 to 4 ribs, depending on the animal. We're going to count 4 on this one, just because it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That is, I'm going to make a cut on it so you guys can see what number 4 rib looks like right there. This is the number 4 rib. And in between that, right after this number 4 rib, in between all the ribs, basically, that's where we're going to try to miss it. And if you were to take a look at where this separation goes, if I were to take my knife and put it straight through, it would come out on this division. You would actually miss, this meat or the shoulder. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to cut it until I get stopped by that little bit of bone over here. We can either snap it. I'm then going to continue all the way down basically until I hit the spine. This is where we may hit the shoulder blade, and we may need to go ahead and cut through that. Try only cut the bone with the saw and not try to swallow the meat with the saw. Same thing, this is part of the only thing that's connecting this right now is the vertebra. So to rather than saw through the vertebra, we can basically just twist it. So this is a 4-quarter. Still 2 cuts on that, right? All right, now what we're left with is essentially belly, which is this lower portion, and then the loin. The loin on this is so tiny. This is what we're cooking today, so it's really important we try not to massacre the loin too much on this. What we're going to do, and this will be some really good practice. We are going to try to bone this out. Typically, what I would do is with the saw, I would actually, on a larger animal, I would actually use either 2 or 3 fingers basically underneath it. That would give me a spacing, and then I would cut a parallel cut right along the spine. This upper portion would be the loin with the bone in. This portion, if I were to put it on a bandsaw and cut it like that, we get bone and pork chops. So the pork chops with the bone, that little bone and a little piece of spine in it is basically from this section up here. We're not going to do bone and pork chops today. So what I'm going to be doing, I want you guys to do take the tip of my knife, and I'm really trying to follow the curve. I really don't want to leave any meat on the bone. I'm going to be cooling, cutting with the tip of my knife. And I'm going to be feeling under here. I'm really feeling and following the curve of that rib cage. Right when I get to this section where it starts to, the curves kind of really start turning on you, this is where you really got to be careful and almost right along that bone, because this is where what we're going to be eating today. We don't want to be cutting too much into the loin because it has so little bit, such a small amount of loin. This is a 30-pound animal. Typically, to debone an animal and use it, we'd be, a lot of times we'd be working with a 300-pound animal. So you can imagine, all the cuts would be like 10 times the weight of the size. So I'm just like, this is basically just the rib cage now. And I just followed along rib cage. Using the tip of my knife, cutting away the loin from the rib cage, and now I'm up by the spine. So, here we got two cuts essentially. Pork loin, pork belly from here, right? And I'm kind of peeling this away. While I still have this, and these aren't really going to be usable, right on the inside is the pork tenderloin. Take that knife, actually do the same thing, kind of follow the curve of the bone, and you almost want to hear the tip of your knife scraping on the bone for this. And I'm going to be peeling away, almost like taking the chicken breast off your chicken. You know, you're using one hand to kind of peel away, and the tip of your knife to kind of scrape along the carcass. And this tiny little thing is the tenderloin. So that's filet mignon on a large cow, basically a large cow. Okay. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to try to follow along and preserve as much of this loin as possible. Basically, the divided with the weight. So I'll remove most of the, and we're left with this portion. This is the loin. You can actually see the muscle, right? In cow, this front portion of loin is the rib cut. It's the prime rib or ribeye steaks, and then the smaller portion is short loin. Then behind that will be the sirloin. So on a hog, This whole section is called the loin. You can separate it. So now this is boneless pork loin. We are going to remove the skin from this. So this is the pork loin. This is the belly. And it turns around. So that you can see essentially the fresh ham. Now we're going to work on this front two portion. Boston butt and shoulder. I'm going to do the same thing I did basically with this belly, where this is parts of the rib. I'm going to follow it along with my knife. Still a little bit of viscera in here. Following it up along here. My knife is eventually going to hit the spine. Be pulling the bone back and now we're left with these basically these two large cuts that are still connected. On a large animal, this is hard to do. A smaller animal, I can kind of feel and articulate the bone, and I can actually figure out where I want to cut. Typically, there's a shoulder blade portion inside the Boston butt. Bone in or bone out Boston butt. Typically, if you get a bone out Boston butt, the shoulder blade is removed for you. The butcher will kind of use a boning knife and dig it out for you. It's a small little portion of the shoulder blade. Bone in, you'll still have that. You'll probably need to take it out yourself. This cut, when I separate the top from bottom, what I like to do is I like to miss the shoulder blade, and I'll take my knife and I'll try to get it below the shoulder blade and make a straight cut across. And I'll keep this cut parallel to the top of the Boston butt. Means I'm not going to cut it at an angle or anything. I'm just going to keep it parallel. And that's where we're going to get basically that rectangular cut. Then by doing this, a lot of times what we'll do is either cut through this joint, because there's a joint, or if you can find the point of articulation where it is, where it moves, I can actually take my knife and cut around the joint. So I didn't need to cut to bone. Here are the portions and the pieces. Actually, go this way. Caramel cuts of log. This is, I'm going to move this so you guys can see it better. Kind of reassembled right here. The whole half. Upper portion right here. This is the Boston butt. Bone will still need to be removed from here. This lower portion, typically the trotters will be removed from here. This is the shoulder. Boston butt is probably one of the most versatile ones. We make sausage from it, we can braise it, we can make chili verde, we can do all kinds of stuff with this. Shoulder, less versatile. Typically, this is the toughest cut on the hog, okay? When we make sausages, a lot of times we shoot for this one. Not only is it the toughest cut on the hog, some people say it's arguably the most flavorful cut on the hog, just because it's so well exercised. Trivia for you guys: Spam is not made from heads, ears, snouts, and tongues. It is made from shoulders. Okay, so Hormel sets aside the shoulders when they do their hogs. Basically, the shoulder is used for spam, so that's why spam is delicious. I love spam. I don't think chefs like to admit that they like spam. I think spam is delicious. Pork loin is the most expensive cut, pound for pound, on the hog that you're going to get. More expensive, the most expensive primal cut, pound for pound. Okay, so make sure you know that. It is not the most expensive pound for pound cut, because the tenderloin would be, but when we're talking about primals, the pork loin is. Cooking method, because you guys are trained from beef, or what would this be for loin? Cooking method. Moist, dry, combination. Dry, moist. What do you think, Bobby? Dry. Nick?
That's the loin.
Loin.
I'd say
Dry.
Dry. Dry. Good. Excellent. Good. Yes. Dry cooking method for this. Okay. So belly. What popular item comes from the belly that you guys like? Bacon. You guys like bacon? Bacon is basically this belly. On a lot larger animal, they would pack it with essentially different types of salts and sugars. They would cure it, they would smoke it, and then when it's sliced really thin across it like this with the skin removed, that's where you get all the cross sections of the fat and the layers of protein inside it. It comes from the pork belly. And then what comes from the fresh ham? Ham. Right, ham comes from the fresh ham. Bone-in ham means it has this bone still in it. Spiral cut ham, you guys have seen spiral cut hams where they will brine this. Typically this is brine. When I say brine, it's similar to curing this. Salt and sugar and water. It's just soaked inside of it for a long time to cure. And then it's smoked and cooked, basically, right? Spiral cut means they take this contraption that cuts it in a spiral around the bone. So all you got to do is cut it off with a sliced ham and falls off of it. So this is the fresh ham, and that's typically what it's used for. That's it, gang. This is pretty much what we're going to be doing today. Now,